Juggernaut, Mrs. Grundy, smattering and avuncular are the four words I'm going to talk about in this video. One of these is of Indian origin, another is based on a character in a play, and a third is related to the word uncle. Stay tuned to know about all this and more, but first do subscribe to The English Nut on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Thank you. This is the favorite word of my viewer Shrins68, Juggernaut. It's an anglicized form of the name of the Hindu god Juggernaut, who presides over the Puri temple in Odisha along with his brother and sister. Once a year during the Rath Yatra festival, the huge wooden forms of the three deities are taken in a massive chariot through streets overflowing with devotees. Seeing the spectacle of the Rath Yatra in the days of the Raj, the British were inspired to come up with the word Juggernaut, meaning an unstoppable force. America has started to fear China's economic juggernaut. Though some experts are worried about its potential for harm, they recognize that it's too late to stop the juggernaut of AI. The juggernaut of the smartphone industry, the iPhone, continues to dominate the market. It would not be easy for the Greeks to stop the Persian juggernaut. This is the favorite term of my viewer Light Loves, Mrs. Grundy. It means an extremely conventional or priggish person, that is, someone who is prudish or exaggeratedly proper. A narrow-minded person who keeps a critical watch on the propriety of others. Propriety, of course, means conformity to conventionally accepted standards of behavior or morals. Mrs. Grundy is given to social opprobrium, meaning contempt or reproach for things she considers inappropriate. After a barrage of complaints from numerous Mrs. Grundys, the objectionable scene had to be cut from the movie. Meera's mother was a real Mrs. Grundy and did not allow her to wear the short skirt to the party. Our principal's name is Mrs. D'Souza, but she might as well be called Mrs. Grundy. But who was the original Mrs. Grundy? Well, she was an unseen character in Speed the Plough, a comic play written in 1798 by British playwright Thomas Morton. Mrs. Grundy, the neighbour of the character Dame Ashfield, never appears in the play. But the sensitive Dame Ashfield refers to her several times, often exclaiming, "What will Mrs. Grundy say?" After the play was performed, this quickly became a popular catchphrase. It's quite extraordinary that a character that went on to become so famous as a figure of speech that it is still in use more than 2 centuries later never actually appeared in the play that gave birth to her. In his 1841 novel Phineas Quiddy, English playwright and novelist John Poole wrote, "Many people take the entire world to be one huge Mrs. Grundy, and upon every act and circumstance of their lives please or torment themselves according to the nature of it by thinking of what that huge Mrs. Grundy, the world, will say about it." Indeed, not much has changed. And even today, we're overly concerned about what people will say if we do a particular thing. Mrs. Grundy became such a well-established term that in 1872, English novelist Samuel Butler named a fictional goddess who dictates social norms Idgrun in his novel Erewhon. Idgrun is an anagram of Grundy, and Erewhon, the title of the novel, is an anagram of nowhere. Erewhon is a utopian novel that is a satire on Victorian society. It is also one of the first novels to explore something that is very much in the news today: artificial intelligence. This is the favorite word of my viewer Kumarswamy MC433, smattering. It means a superficial or shallow knowledge of a subject. I know a smattering of German, certainly not enough to make a speech in that language. Smattering can also mean a small number or amount of something. Only a smattering of people voted for the new political party. Louis Agassiz, the Swiss-American biologist, said, "A smattering of everything is worth little. It is a fallacy to suppose that an encyclopedic knowledge is desirable. The mind is made strong not through much learning, but by the thorough possession of something. In other words, it's better to know a few things thoroughly than to have a superficial knowledge of many things. In his short story titled Sentiment, Charles Dickens wrote, Minerva House was a finishing establishment for young ladies, where some 20 girls of the ages from 13 to 19 inclusive acquired a smattering of everything and a knowledge of nothing. This is a favorite word of my viewer Minku Mukherjee, avuncular. It means relating to or characteristic of an uncle. It's about behaving like an uncle, as in being kind, generous, patient, and so on, especially towards younger people. Basically, it refers to the traits typically associated with an uncle, being jolly, indulgent, helpful, but at the same time a bit stodgy. That is, a bit boring and old-fashioned. My father's best friend treats me in an avuncular manner and even calls me his nephew. The old professor behaved in a slightly bumbling, avuncular sort of way. Our CEO adopted an avuncular tone of voice when he spoke to the new batch of trainees. To my surprise, the avuncular character of the doctor was revealed as the killer at the end of the movie. Avuncular is derived from the Latin word avunculus, which means maternal uncle or mother's brother, whom we called mama in various Indian languages. Here's a quote from the Financial Times that uses the word. Taizo Nishimuro was an avuncular, widely admired titan of the Japanese business establishment who ran 3 of the country's most important companies and exemplified both the good and bad in its corporate culture. Juggernaut, Mrs. Grundy, smattering, avuncular. I hope you found these 4 words interesting. Do let me know your views. I'm the English Nut. Bye for now.